Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started. Welcome to our webinar today on our proposed rule changes. My name is Rachel Barksdale. I'm with the Department of State Lands. Our presentation is going to be about 30 minutes, and then we'll have time for questions at the end. If you could type your questions into the chat box, and then we'll read them off at the end, that would work out great. And originally Dana Hicks was supposed to do this presentation, but she is out sick today. So Eric Metz is going to be giving it instead. So I will turn it over to him. And if you want to see the presentation bigger on your screen, if you go up to the top window, there's two little arrows kind of diagonal. If you click that, it'll go into full screen view. Go ahead.
Okay. Thanks, Rachel. So I apologize that you have to accept my substitution for Dana Hicks. She has a far more in-depth understanding of this program. So what I'm going to focus on today is really the background and the overview. And when we get to the end, I'll answer whatever questions I can. Otherwise, we're going to need to have you contact Dana, and her contact information is at the end of the slideshow.
Yep.
So let's get started. So next slide. Yeah. So even before we start talking about rule changes, because this is for a general audience, we want to give you a brief overview of what wetlands are and why they're important. Wetlands and waters in Oregon include wetlands, streams and rivers, lakes, ponds, and the territorial sea. And these aquatic habitats occur at various locations and positions in the landscape, from snowmelt-driven streams and mossy fens in the mountains to kelp beds and rocky tide pools along the coast. Many of the wetlands and waters in Oregon are managed to provide benefits such as water sources for agricultural crops and rangeland, hydropower, and homes and businesses. Next slide. Why is there regulation of wetlands and other waters? The protection, conservation, and best use of water resources in Oregon are important to all Oregonians. Streams, lakes, and estuaries and other waters in Oregon are vital to the economy and the well-being of the state and its people, including providing water for home and commercial use, habitat for wildlife, avenues for transportation, and sites for commerce and public recreation. DSL works with the Corps and EPA to process permits that involve removing or filling wetland and stream areas. Mitigation is a reduction of a proposed project's adverse effects to resources like wetlands and streams. We work with permit applicants to first avoid impacts, then to minimize impacts, and then compensate for unavoidable impacts. We do this through our mitigation program.
Slide didn't go. Here we go.
Okay. The main changes that are being proposed with the new rule have to do with the benefits that wetlands provide. Wetlands and other waters provide important ecological and societal benefits called functions and values. The contribution of different types of wetlands and waters varies. For example, a stream with a floodplain can store and delay water like a sponge during high winter flows, thus helping to protect downstream development. Seasonal wetlands help store, transfer, and transform nitrogen, thereby improving water quality. Oregon's current requirements focus on replacing affected acres, an approach the studies show has led to a nationwide loss of the benefits that wetlands and waters provide. Existing state law and new national standards adopted in 2008 require replacing benefits lost and not only acres lost. The proposed changes will better align Oregon's mitigation approach with the national standard to improve outcomes for communities and the environment. The rules are changing to improve our mitigation efforts and replace wetlands more effectively. This will improve the environment on a watershed scale. Currently, there are deficiencies in the regulatory program. The three agencies, the Corps, U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, U.S. Environmental Protection Agency, and the Department of State Lands, are proposing a number of changes to address those deficiencies. First, rather than focusing just on wetland area, under the new mitigation framework, we call it the Aquatic Resource Mitigation Framework, or just the ARMF. We're proposing to replace functions and values plus the aquatic area. We propose to use protocols to replace lost functions and services due to unavoidable impacts to all aquatic resources, not just wetlands. We have developed new stream assessment tools to support decisions regarding stream mitigation, and we wish to conduct compensatory mitigation decision-making using a watershed approach. Function assessment methods. A part of characterizing the aquatic resources at a potential development site is to assess what functions and values the wetlands provide. Similarly, at a mitigation site, we want to understand what functions and values are already present, or what will be present after proposed activities in a mitigation plan. DSL currently recognizes 3 references based on hydrogeomorphic methods that apply to certain regions and wetland types that would not be carried forward for regulatory purposes. Site selection. Once information about the aquatic resources at the impact site is understood, and the project will likely result in unavoidable impacts of these resources, applicants will look for a compensatory mitigation site. Selection of an appropriate compensatory mitigation site is key. Studies have shown that a leading cause of wetland mitigation performance issues is poor site selection for the wetland type, functions, and values sought. While no substantive changes in policy is proposed, wording may be better aligned with federal rule. Eligibility. The mitigation site must also be able to replace the wetlands that will be impacted. Policy will be more specific to state how the applicant will demonstrate functions and value replacement. This applies whether you're using the Oregon Rapid Wetland Assessment Protocol, the Vernal Pool Function Assessment Method, or best professional judgment. Okay. There'll be a new policy on accounting, which will begin with a minimum acreage for compensation, but it'll be adjusted higher based upon 3 factors: degree of function and value replacement, temporal loss of functions, and degree of mitigation site protection and stewardship. Applicants will continue to purchase 1 credit per acre of impact for wetland impacts less than 0.2 acres. Stream policy will align closely with what is proposed for wetlands, and some differences based upon inherent differences between stream and wetland resources and appropriate use of the stream functional assessment information. The stream functional assessment method, or SFAM, and associated information will allow us to better manage our aquatic resources and provide better truth and accounting whether mitigation is adequately compensating for unavoidable impacts. SFAM was publicly released in June of 2018 and will not be required for individual permits until July 1, 2019, basically to give everybody that's using it to kind of work the bugs out of the system because it's brand new. We're not proposing an impact threshold for streams under which SFAM would not be required, and this is for 3 primary reasons. Streams are considered a difficult to replace resource under the federal mitigation rule. There's not a straightforward threshold. Projects in streams have varying effects on functions and values depending upon the characteristics of the stream, the type of project being conducted, and the size of the impact. DSL and the Corps have streamlined permits that include specific activities and project size restrictions and do not require function and value assessments. So now we'll explain the rulemaking process that we're currently in. We're currently in the middle of or I guess at the beginning of the public comment period, which started November 1st. There are several opportunities to give us your suggestions and comments on the proposed changes. You can come to any of 3 public hearings at the locations listed in the slide, or you can provide us with your comments where you can provide us your comments in person. You can also use the online form on our website or email your comments to us. You can also physically mail in your comments. The website links, email address, and physical address are provided on the last slide of the PowerPoint, or you can find them on the DSL website. The most important thing to remember is all comments must be received by 5 p.m. on Friday, December 7th to be considered. Over the past several years, DSL has been working with the Corps and EPA to develop this framework to meet the goals of the final compensatory mitigation rule. Since we are in the public comment period now, the next steps in implementation are as follows. We have already provided several trainings on the new assessment methods and continue to host trainings throughout the year. This includes training to internal staff for permitting purposes, as well as trainings for consultants and other agencies who would be using the new information tools such as SFAM when applying for a permit. Information from function assessment tools must be used appropriately. These are rapid assessment tools that have limits on how well they can evaluate effects of removal fell actions. Policies and protocols for how we use the information from assessments needs to be flexible enough to allow for the best professional judgment, including evaluating aquatic resources that are distinct and are not covered by a statewide assessment tool. Mitigation banks are large-scale wetland and/or stream restoration projects approved under a detailed agreement to sell credits within a certain area. While transitioning, credits will be optional for the existing bank sponsors, and applicants could continue to purchase mitigation credits from these banks using current procedures, and any new banks or phases initiated after the new framework become effective will be approved under the new policies. Finally, we're working to develop a monitoring framework that will help us to assess how effective these new changes will be so we continue to improve our program in the future. So at this point, in the last slide, we have contact information for Dana and contact information for how to participate in the public comment period. Questions?
If you have any questions, you can go ahead and type them in the chat box, and then I'll read them out loud and we can answer them. And if there's no questions, the webinar is being recorded and we'll post it on our website later. So if you have questions that you think of later that you weren't able to ask today, you can go ahead and contact us. Looks like there's not any questions.
Okay.
Oh, someone's taking. No questions.
Okay.
All right, well, thank you, and yeah, like I said, if you want to watch it again or send in any comments, we'll have the links on the website.